This is the American Arson Podcast, where our goal is to spark creativity. Whether you're a musician, an artist, a writer, or an entrepreneur, we're here to provide you with tools, tips, and insight from professionals and creatives that you can use to inform and inspire your own journey. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the American Arson Podcast, and we have a bit different episode for you today. We are going to be taking a look at all of the songs on A Line in the Sand and just doing a little bit of a deep dive on each one.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk about this. We've gotten a lot of questions about different songs on the album, what they mean, how they were written, what they're written about, etc. So we figured we'd give you guys a little more insight into the process we went through with this album.
Absolutely. And if you only listen to this show for the guests, don't worry. The guests will come back next week, and you don't have to just listen to us.
Crap, it's just these two.
Right. And if you just have one song in particular that you're really interested in hearing about, and you don't really care about the rest of them, we're going to put timestamps in the show notes, so you can go down in the show notes and check out where your favorite song might be, and then that way you can navigate back to it easily. If you get in a fight with somebody and they try to tell you this song is like about human cyborg relations, and you're like, no, actually, I know what it's about, and I can prove it from these show notes. So, yeah, with that said.
Although that might be a good idea for a concept album.
Yeah, so there we go. We just decided our next
LP number 2.
LP 2 is about human cyborg relations, like it or not. So, all right, well, let's dive into it.
If every poor man is a
All right, so the first song on the album is the intro track, The End, ironically entitled The End.
Yeah,
at the beginning of the album.
That was a little bit cheeky, I know, for us to start off the album with a song called The End.
Very punny.
Right.
So yeah, this one, I mean, it's pretty obvious, I think. It's straightforward. The lyrics are at the forefront of the song. There's not a whole lot going on at first.
Just 4 lines.
Instrumentally. Yeah, it's just the same thing over and over, and it was kind of written as like what the way our friend Casey put it, a thesis statement, and I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I think sometimes other people have an interesting view, a better view than you might even have as the writer. I think thesis statement for the rest of the album was a really good way to put it. And even though not all of the songs touch on the issues that come up in the end, which obviously there's only 4 lines, so there's only so much we could talk about there. I think all of those things are they affect the other songs on the album too, because if the things that we talk about in the end don't matter, then the other songs can't really matter either. If you're singing songs about like intrapersonal issues, relationship issues, really none of that stuff matters if the lines from the end don't matter. And there's a few things that we pointed out right away that we'd go on to address in a little bit more detail. So I think thesis statement was a really good way to put it.
Hit the nail on the head with that one. I think you'll see as we go on with this where it ties in.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a short song, so this will be a short one.
A short summary.
Yeah, a short summary. All right, next up we have Drop Your Daggers, and we released a lyric video for this song, and there was quite a visceral reaction the day that it came out.
I think it was kind of expected with this one.
Yeah.
We wanted to make we don't consider ourselves strictly a political band. There's even before the whole COVID situation happened, there was a lot going on in the world. And I think we kind of just wanted the album to start off with a statement, right after the end, of Intent, really just kind of where we stand on a lot of the issues going on, and how we feel about it.
Yeah.
And that seems really general, but
no, it is. It's funny though, because I've heard people say, and it came up in a couple of reviews, and I've also just seen some comments where people have said like that
it wasn't specific enough or something,
no, I'm thinking more of where people have said that the album was that the lyrics on the album were really timely. And it was funny because we wrote this album before we knew anything about COVID. I guess while we were writing it, it existed, but it was going on just basically just in China at that point.
It was before all the racial tensions escalated and stuff too, and
absolutely.
So it was before everything.
Right. So it did end up being timely, I think, because I think that people are just really, really fed up right now with a lot of the stuff that's going on, and we were fed up too. And I think what you saw when we wrote that song, it wasn't just about a single issue. It was about like symptoms that seemed to show a larger picture. So but there was some arguing and some back and forth in the comments, and we don't typically like to engage with stuff like that. We just kind of, we put the song out, we said our piece. If you want to say your piece, then you can make your own
more than
song.
Welcome to. That was part of it too. We kind of encouraged people up front, like, listen, like, we know people are gonna have differing views on this, and that's okay. Like, we're never gonna knock someone for thinking the way they think, but like it was about more creating discussion around those points, and hopefully bringing people from different backgrounds, from different opinions and viewpoints together to be able to maybe discuss their differences in a maybe not polite way, but a cordial, like civil way.
Civil's a good
civil is the word for it. Because that's really, we're never going to work through any of these things if two people that see things the completely opposite way can't come together and have a discussion about it, without screaming in each other's face and calling each other idiots.
Right. And I think anytime that you are encouraging people to have dialogue, you can get accused anybody that's trying to make peace between two groups, you can get accused of being neutral or being vanilla or something like that. And so that was the one thing where I think we kind of put our foot down and said, okay, when we started to see some comments come up like that, like we're riding the fence, or like this is what somebody says, like intellectually dishonest because whatever reason, that at that point we felt the need to say like, okay, well, if you can't tell this from the lyrics, like here's what the song's about. And we did put out a short statement summing that up. So if you didn't see that, I'm just going to read that because I feel like it does a really good job of summing up just what this song is about and what the lyrics mean to us. So we said we oppose polarizing, inflammatory rhetoric meant to drum up an emotional response and demonize the opposition, which is everywhere right now. We said we oppose the grip that the corporate lobby has on American politics. We oppose the relentless pursuit of re-election above actual civil service and the use of shameless pandering to achieve said re-election. Another thing that's everywhere right now. We oppose pork barrel legislation, sweetheart deals, and the exploitation of the American people and American resources for political and personal gain. We believe in government of the people, by the people, for the people, not by career politicians or handpicked elites. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, we believe that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, aka the left or the right, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against spiritual forces of weakness in the heavenly places. And so a lot of this left versus right stuff can really be a distraction from recognizing that.
And I'm so sick of people seeing people online. I honestly stay off of social media unless it's for band stuff or to like post something real quick from my personal life, because I'm so sick of seeing Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It doesn't matter the platform anymore. Snapchat, TikTok, even it's everywhere of people. I'm a Republican. I do this. Like, screw you guys. Like, and it's just so frustrating.
Well, and the other way, we're equal opportunity here.
Yeah, and like, I'm Democrat. Like, well, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm a Christian. I'm not a Christian. Like, it's everywhere, and it's so frustrating because oftentimes it's so shallow too, and there's no thought behind it other than
a cheap shot.
I think differently. Yeah, I think differently than you, and therefore you suck.
Yeah, you're right. It is everywhere. I'm pretty sure I deactivated my MySpace page a decade ago, but I think if I go back on MySpace and
I miss MySpace.
It's probably there right now too. I don't think there's anywhere that's safe from it.
No, MySpace was pure.
Yeah.
It was. Don't ruin that memory.
Well, everybody, we can all get super excited because now, as we approach November, we are going to watch any TV that we are watching get taken over by political ads and by debates where the number one strategy is just going to be ad hominem attacks. So if you're not pumped up for that, I don't know what gets you excited. What gets you out of bed?
The only thing that can make this year any weirder is Tom coming back and announcing that MySpace is having a resurgence.
And maybe that's what we need. Honestly, maybe that's what we need.
We need Tom for president.
I think that's really the main takeaway out of this from this song. We need Tom from MySpace to come back and run for president, and maybe that will fix everything.
Forever, I'm following the road that leads back to revival. Forever, I'm following the road.
All right, so this song is called Forever. This song we kind of wrote about pursuing your calling, what you feel passionate about, regardless of if it's maybe the most safe or secure option. I know that's something both me and Evan relate very closely to. It's something that kind of came out of a little bit of both of our journeys and our journey as a band. American Arson hasn't always been smooth sailing. Our projects before this haven't always been smooth sailing. And there's been a lot of times, both in the American Arson journey and our personal lives, where there's been that battle of like, do we keep going? Like, can we keep going?
Yeah.
Can we push through this? And then inevitably God, someone in our lives, a combination of the two, reminds us of why we're doing what we do through American Arson.
Yeah.
And we decide to push through the obstacles in our way.
Yeah, I know it's sort of a cliche that the music industry will kind of chew you up and spit you out, and that it's almost taken for granted now. But basically, every terrible negative thing that can happen to a band, short of like getting in a terrible car accident, has happened to us at this point. Yeah, we've had instruments stolen multiple times. We've had trailers break. We had the door fall off a trailer.
We've had trailers. I was gonna say we've had trailers break in multitudes of ways.
Yeah.
Lights go out, wheels fall off. We've quite literally had the door just snap while we were loading stuff onto it.
We've had breakdowns, which happens to everybody. We've had our cash box stolen. We've had shows fall through. Basically anything that you can think of.
It's not an American. It used to be a running joke that it's not an American Arson tour without something getting stolen or breaking
yeah. Seriously, our friends were like, "We don't want to go on tour with you guys. You're like the Jonah of the tour. Like we get rid of you, maybe all this stuff will go away." But I think we're talking about it forever. And this applies to anybody in any situation. When you feel called to do something,
it doesn't have to be music.
Yeah, whatever you feel called to do, you can't. That's not a fair weather calling, right? It's not just, well, I feel called to do this as long as things are going smoothly, as long as things are going okay. Anybody can feel that. That's not a calling, right? There are there are storms that you're going to have to weather when you feel very strong that you're supposed to do something good. Jesse and I both have full-time jobs. We, we're not at a point where we can do this full-time. And so, all of the stuff that needs to get done in order for us to be a functioning, healthy and somewhat successful band has to get done on top of normal life, except for during COVID when nothing is normal. But that's something that, where there have been many times where I think both of us would admit that our lives would have been much easier if the band did not exist, and things in our lives would run smoother if it didn't exist.
100%. But I think we would both also admit that looking back on those times, 100% we're glad we pushed through them.
Yeah.
And that something even better came out of it on the other side.
Yeah.
That we either something tangible, whether it was a big show or like a better opportunity for the band, or just a feeling of growth, whether it's in our relationship as bandmates or people, or just individually, feeling like, man, like we pushed through that, like we can get through anything.
Right. And if you have listened to American Arson for longer than just a line in the sand, you might have heard a song that we wrote called Revival in My Lungs. If you haven't heard that, you can go back and check it out. It's on our EP called Waymaker. And that is a song about sort of the positive end of it, how music makes us feel when we get an opportunity to play. And so, that's kind of the what's at the end of the road, and there's a little callback to that in the chorus, following the road, that leads back to revival. So if you haven't heard that and you like this song, you want a little deeper picture of what the song means, then by all means go and check that song out as well.
I spun the wheel and headed north and landed on the shore.
All right, so this song was the first single released from the album. It's called Unbreakable. It's done better than I think any of our releases thus far. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you. Seriously, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been incredible to see that song take off. But
actually, by the time this comes out, it will be over 500,000 streams across all platforms, which we could have never imagined.
Unreal.
So it's really cool.
Yeah. But although you guys obviously know this song pretty well, I would assume so if you're listening to this video, we figured we'd give you a little insight into where the song comes from, because Evan does have a very specific story for this one.
So story time. This will be a little bit different than some of the other explanations. So if you don't know, I used to be in a band called Good Luck Varsity before I was in American Arson, and near the end of that band, things were going really well for us, and we had a lot of opportunities that were available to us. We were touring like 7 to 8 months out of the year. I was basically coming home, coaching a high school soccer team in the spring, and then leaving again on tour. And then just sort of the relationships in the band started to deteriorate. We were on the road way too much. We weren't taking breaks, and it wasn't anybody's fault. Not blaming somebody else, but it just got to the point where it wasn't sustainable.
Happens.
Yeah,
road
definitely.
life is tough.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for that kind of a length of time. And so the band dissolved. I came back home. I knew that I still wanted to do music. I felt that calling. It wasn't even a want. It was just something that I felt called to do. But I also knew that I couldn't start a new project and go straight back on the road with 0 fans, 0 songs, 0 money, anything like that, nothing to sell at that point. And so I needed to kind of figure out how to bridge the gap. So I started substitute teaching, which was okay. I didn't hate it. It gave me time to, most of the time they only, as you guys know, most of the time they only trust a substitute to put on like Bill Nye the Science Guy or like Mythbusters or something. So basically I would put on a movie. I would watch the same 6 episodes of Mythbusters, and I would write. And I started thinking about the future, started thinking about American Arson and what I wanted it to look like and what I wanted my life to look like, because I was basically starting over. And I got this idea that I think came up when I was sitting there watching an episode of Mythbusters for the 6th or 7th time, that I should go on a soul searching journey. These were like really, really common for like thousands of years. Like this is something that people did. It was like, whether it was like you're becoming a man kind of thing or whatever it happened to be. And I just thought like, man, if I can do that, I bet you I will figure everything out. And it sounds really, yeah, I know it sounds like simple and reductive right now, but I just thought like, I'm going to go.
Movie starring Russell Crowe.
Right. So I knew that I didn't want to go in a car. It's just like too easy. There's too many things available to you. I also didn't, have the equipment or survival skills.
How can I make this as hard on myself as I possibly can?
Right. I didn't have like the equipment or survival skills to just like walk into the wilderness. And I also think my family probably lost their minds. So like what I settled somewhere in between, which was that I wanted to circumnavigate the lower peninsula of Michigan on a bike. So if you don't remember from...
So circumnavigate means travel around.
Thank you, Jesse, with the English degree. If you don't remember, I have a map. If you don't remember from your elementary school geography, Michigan right here has 2 peninsulas. We have a lower one and an upper one, divided by a little bit of water, but we're super smart in Michigan, so now we have a bridge that connects the 2 peninsulas. So if you're just listening, if you're only taking this podcast in, listening, then pull up a map of Michigan.
Our YouTube channel.
Yeah, or go to our YouTube channel. But so the plan was to go all the way around the lower peninsula of Michigan, which is about 800 miles, in 2 weeks, and then meet my family over here on the west side of Michigan, where they were going to be for vacation. And I decided that to make this especially hard on myself, I should do this on a single speed road bike. So if you don't know anything about bikes, most bikes have gears. When you get to a hill, you put it in a lower gear and it makes it way easier. Your legs spin faster, but you can get up the hill easier. I decided that would be too easy and I should just go on a single speed road bike, which doesn't have any gears. And that means when you get to a hill, you just have to ride really, really hard to try to get up the hill. So I packed the bike with a bunch of stuff and some minimalist camp gear and only a couple change of clothes. I packed it all on there. I got some saddlebags and everything. I think I actually have a picture. So if you're watching on YouTube, we'll throw that picture up on the screen of me.
The origins of Camping Guy.
Right. Yeah, I have an alter ego named Camping Guy, and this is kind of where he was born. So I thought that I had my whole route planned out and everything, but I didn't know it by memory, obviously. So I had bought a clip to go on my bike that was going to hold my phone and that was going to, give me directions. So I started riding, and on the first day I was due to do 50 miles. And I had a campsite, had it booked and everything ready to go. Well, I got about 25 miles into the first day, and I looked down to find out what my next direction was, and my phone was gone. It had been on the frame, and the clip was gone as well. So it wasn't just my phone fell off; the whole clip was just gone. And so I had no idea where I was going. It was going to be gone for 2 weeks. Obviously, I had no way to communicate with anybody. So I knew that my only option was to go and find the phone. So I started back retracing my steps, or not really steps, I guess. I don't know what I was retracing.
Your path.
My path. There you go. I was retracing my path. I rode back to the last place that I could remember having it, which ended up being about an extra 10 miles. So at this point, I've now rode 35 miles, but I'm actually further away from, where I need to go than I was when I was at 25 miles. Somebody do the math. I don't know how far away that puts me, but 35 miles away from where I need to be. I'm exhausted because I'm on a single speed bike with all my gear. And I eventually just went into this McDonald's, and I asked if I could use their phone, and I called my dad because I didn't know what else to do. And so my dad came out, and he has an iPhone as well. So we used the Find My iPhone app, and we ended up tracking down my phone. After several hours, we tracked down my phone, and it was in It was in a gym. It was like a CrossFit gym where they were sending people out for a run, and somebody miraculously just found it on the sidewalk, brought it in, and had it in the CrossFit gym. And so they gave it back to me. So at this point, I'm still determined. I'm going to do this thing. But it was getting dark, so I had my dad drive me to the place that I was going to camp. He had a bike rack and everything. Cool, no big deal. So, all right, not the greatest day, but I'm still on schedule, going to be ready to go the next day. So the next day, load everything up, pack my tent, all that stuff, and get everything on the bike. Well, I must have been exhausted or just not quite paying attention the way that I was the first day, because I didn't tuck in the end of one of my toe straps that I was using to connect my my tent to the rear rack of my bike. So I got about 5 miles down the road and my toe strap got caught in the spokes of my bike and then got caught in the chain, which dumped me off of the bike hilariously, because the bike just completely froze, stopped moving while I was riding, 15 miles an hour or whatever I was riding. And then wrapped around the chain and around the tire so many times that it was impossible for me to unwind it. It was just completely stuck. I ended up having to pull out my knife that I brought. It's just a little pocket knife, and just saw through the toe strap until everything.
It's what you want, though.
Yeah. So we're 2 days in. I'm having a terrible experience at this point. And now all of the gear that I have cannot possibly be secured because I had this long toe strap that I just had to cut into pieces. So I did have some rope, and I was able to tie that up to everything. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? It's 2 days. It's 2 disasters. This is probably not going to work. I know I really need to go on this trip, but I've just lost a key piece of gear. I've wasted a lot of time at this point. I think I probably need to just sort of reevaluate what I'm going to do. So long story short, I rode my bike all the way home, which at that point I was like 55 miles away from home. So I had now rode like 105 miles in 2 days. I was in the exact same spot that I started. And I decided that I was just going to I was going to do this trip, but I was going to do it with my truck. So I took my kayak, I tossed it in the back of my truck.
Should have just taken more of the story, kids. Just take the car.
Yeah, should have just taken the car. And so at this point, I'm starting to feel like, great, this was supposed to be like a soul searching journey. And this is really kind of where Unbreakable starts, where the very first verse starts. I'm in this place where I'm already feeling like everything that I had planned out for my life is sort of destructing at this point. So I put together this whole soul searching adventure that I was going to go on to fix all of this. And now, bam, that's blowing up in my face too. So, you start off Unbreakable, and that is basically me starting the car and heading north. And I just decided I was just going to drive straight north as far as I possibly could, which in Michigan, I'll bring up the map again, is all the way to the top of the Upper Peninsula here. If you're just going straight up, Jesse and I live down here in the Detroit area. I went all the way up to just the top of the Upper Peninsula to Lake Superior, and got there and just realized that I had just so badly miscalculated that something like this was going to solve all my problems. And I ended up doing the trip. I was there for I did 14 days. I basically went all different locations in the Upper and Lower Peninsula, and camped and just spent some time alone and spent some time reflecting. But yeah, I just remember feeling that panic, that this is not going to do what I think it's going to do. It's not just that simple. You're right. You can't just snap your fingers and watch the whole rest of your life fall into place. And it was from that trip, which initially I thought was unsuccessful because I didn't come up with a plan for the rest of my life. But the decision that I did make on that trip, which was sort of, the line in the sand that I was able to draw, was that I'm going to stop micromanaging every single area of my life. Stop with the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan and all that stuff. And I'm not saying it's bad to have goals. You should have goals. But when we're so inflexible, or when we come up with these ideas that like,
when you try and get the next 5 years of your life planned out to a T, it's almost never going to go exactly how you plan it. And so if you make up your mind that the second something doesn't go according to plan, like if in your mind it has to all go according to your original plan, then you're almost always going to be stressed out because it's never going to happen. And as soon as you make that decision to, again, like it's good to have some level of planning, some level of security, but as soon as you make that decision that, you know what, I'm gonna go with the flow, I'm gonna trust the process, I'm gonna trust my calling, more importantly, and I'm gonna go for it 100%, no matter what happens, then it's gonna feel like a weight's lifted off your back.
Yeah. And there's such a temptation, at least for me, because I'm a planner, to put these arbitrary deadlines down. Like in 14 days, I'm going to have everything figured out, or, by the end of this period, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And we just don't know. I mean, I had all sorts of plans, Jesse and I both did, with the band and otherwise for this summer. And then, COVID comes out of nowhere. Who could have predicted that? And if you're so rooted and cemented into this plan that you had, it's really going to hit you hard. And so that's what what the first verse is about. And then the chorus kind of alludes to the fact that, I've had those feelings come back and sneak back up on me a few times of hey, you're just sort of wandering in the wilderness here. I have a job that I really enjoy right now, but I still, I have a band that I really enjoy. I'm married now. All of these things that I didn't have 6 years ago when this whole thing happened. But I still just get this sort of this like creeping feeling sometimes that I need to figure out what's next. I need to figure out how are things going to come together. And so the chorus is just sort of about letting go of that and saying, yeah, I see that feeling. I'm aware of it. I'm not going to bury it and pretend like it's not there. But I've taken my faith out of 5-year plans or 10-year plans and all that stuff, and just decided to put my faith in God, and to trust that if I'm pursuing my calling, and if I'm doing the right thing and taking it day by day, then I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to be. So that was I know that was a really long story, but I just felt like it was all kind of crucial to that point. There's not a whole lot of lyrics in Unbreakable. It's pretty short. If you look at it on a page, some of the lyrics are repeated and stuff. So it's kind of crazy that this story is that long behind it. But
don't judge a book by its cover.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't too boring for you guys. So
they're like, the moment you'd say, and that's the first verse.
Right. They're like, oh, really? We got 4 more hours of this? But, yeah. All right. Next up, we have the song Stay True.
Yeah, so this one is one that really hits home. I mean, I know it hits home with both of us. All the songs on the record do. This one really specifically hits home with me. It's one of my favorite songs just to play on the album, too. It's just one of my favorite songs off the record musically, but also the message about really staying true to yourself, and being able to deal with whatever's thrown at you. And for me, so I have dealt with and lived with an anxiety disorder for several years now, for a long time now, really. And that's something that's always burdened me. It's between that and my struggle with depression has weighted me down significantly at different times in my life. And oftentimes it can be the the littlest thing that can trigger me, or it can be something like a massive tour getting canceled or a big health issue. When I was a kid, I dealt with a level of hypochondria too, where like, the second a little health thing would come up, my anxiety would kick in. I would immediately start thinking that, oh my gosh, I got like 3 days to live, and I can laugh about certain scenarios now where I was like, that was just a little cold, but in the midst of it, it's absolutely terrifying. There was one point in my life where things just weren't going right out of school. I was in between jobs. I just didn't know what was going on. And I started having severe stabbing chest pains. I was convinced something was wrong with my heart. And come to find out, my anxiety levels and my stress levels had gotten so high that my body was just reacting to it. I can't remember the name of the condition they gave me. And the muscles in my chest were and swelling up and inflaming, and causing those stabbing pains. And so I basically had to learn to manage my stress and anxiety, which can be hard at times. And this song for me, it's been a rough 12 years dealing with that stuff. It's kind of flared back up, even though I've learned to cope with it pretty well. And so when we were recording it, I was dealing with a lot of that too. I had gone through a period of about maybe a couple weeks where I don't think I slept more than a couple hours in a single night. I was absolutely exhausted. I was terrified of just life in general, my future, how this album was going to turn out, if I was playing the right parts, if all that we were pouring into this was worth it. And, how am I going to make money? How I'm going to like everything. And I had a pretty severe panic attack that week. And I can remember coming in to record the drums for this song, and then recording the vocals too. And just it was an emotional process for me, because it was almost like through the process of recording the drums for it, us doing the vocals, it was almost what I needed to hear myself. For those of you guys who aren't as familiar with our process, lots of times Evan will come in with a set of lyrics or a song or whatever, based off of something that he or I have been through or we've been through together. We bounce ideas musically and stuff off of each other, and then we'll go into the studio and record it. And to have him bring this song forward that was almost pretty much exactly what I was like begging God to say to me at the time, was like, you can deal with this, you can push through it. I don't even know how to put it into words. For me, it's just a really emotional tie to the time we were recording this song. And I can't say that my anxiety or depression are things that I've totally healed from. Still deal with them on a daily basis. But this song for me is kind of a reminder to, no matter how little or big the issue is, no matter how much it terrifies me, to stay true to the path that I know God has laid out for my life, to the things that I feel him calling me to do. If it's not for my sake, then it's for someone else's. And that's what keeps me moving forward. And I just hope that, this song, maybe another one on the album too, can help you feel the same way, whether it's just a bad day at work, whether you have a serious health condition, family matters, relationships, whatever it is, you're battling, or maybe it's just life. Life's overwhelming.
COVID life is certainly as overwhelming as it gets right now.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite memes I've ever seen was like this one where a third grade teacher like posted the sign-in sheet for why kids were showing up tardy, and one of her kids scribbled in "life, man." And I was just like, man, that third grader is a genius,
right?
Because that's just how it is sometimes. But it's a bit all over the place. for me. It's more of an emotional thing, really,
Yeah.
than a specific event, because that's something that I have dealt with and something that I continue to deal with,
Yeah.
and can apply to varying scenarios, whether you deal with anxiety or depression or not. Um,
Yeah, or just
but
overcoming just something that is giving you trouble. The second verse, it's like just talking about things that I want dead, I want out of my life,
yeah,
um and
something that you're scared to let go of,
right.
like that, or it's just tough, like it's not always easy, like maybe you need it out of your life, you're not scared about cutting it out of your life, but it's not the easiest thing. Like those old habits, don't go away,
Yeah.
quickly. But
Yeah, and
um
I just that's the second verse. I listed just four of them that just give me problems if you don't have the lyrics in front of you, or if you don't remember them. It was avarice, selfishness, envy, and wrath. And and then the verse wraps, give me the strength to stay true to the path. But like Jesse talked about, this song is just kind of it's almost just sort of a straightforward prayer to just to be able to have the strength to get through whatever is thrown in front of you. So by all means, take this song and apply it in whatever way you can in your own life. I know this is more of a personal one, but whatever you're dealing with, if this can provide you with any sort of assistance, then go for it. So
yeah, and also, I mean, we say this at our shows all the time, but we can't play shows right now, so
right.
never never hesitate to reach out to us. Obviously, I have one way that this song has affected me. It's helped my mental journey. But you may have a completely different scenario, and we love to hear people that reach out to us. Just tell us about their life, what they're going through, what they're dealing with. Maybe one of our songs has been able to help you in some way. And we're always here to listen. We check our band messages on our Instagram and Facebook as often as we can and try and reply to every single one.
Yeah.
We're not professionals. As much as I like to think I have something to say to everyone, even if we can't necessarily give you, professional medical opinions or, psychological opinions, we can do our best to encourage you and maybe pass you along to some people who can. I have tons of resources that have helped me that I would love to pass on to you. So shoot us a message in these times where you can't come up to us in person.
Yeah.
And let us know how this or another song have affected you, or maybe just maybe it's not about one of the songs, you just want to chat. So
Absolutely.
December closing in. I can feel the bite of winter in the wind. The current will come, the water will rise. We'll watch summer die. The current will come.
all right, so this next song is called The Water Will Rise.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites on the album. It's very different than a lot of stuff we've done before. But from a lyrical perspective, I wrote it sort of as an analogy, allegory type song about marriage. But I really think it could apply to any relationship. I think that today we are presented with so many, or we enter into so many surface level relationships, and we have a surface level understanding of what love is even. So this song was about is about love surviving, love enduring, and if you're willing to enter into a relationship, and again, that doesn't have to be a marriage. If you're like, this doesn't apply to me, I'm not married, it could be a friendship, it could be your relationship with a family member, a father, mother, brother, grandparent, whatever it happens to be. If you're willing to go into that relationship with an idea that
It's not always going to be easy.
yeah, and that you're
going to be bumps in the road,
and that you're willing to sacrifice, and that you believe that love is a verb, is something active, is something that you do. It's not just a feeling that you have, because I promise you, it doesn't matter what relationship you're in, friendship, romantic relationship, family relationship, whatever it happens to be, there will be times where you don't feel the love, you don't feel the warm and fuzzy stuff. And it's in those times that you have to remember that love is, it's not something that you feel, it's something that you do. And it's something that endures. And so I felt like the seasons, and I got married in the summer, so that was sort of like a slam dunk for me. But I felt like sort of that idea of summer turning to fall, turning to winter. Relationships have life cycles, and some days things are really good, and then things happen, or maybe something gets under your skin, and you can go through winters in a relationship, and you have to decide at that point whether there's going to be a spring, whether there's going to be regeneration to that relationship, or if you're just going to let it die in the like things do in the winter. So
a lot of people are willing to enjoy the vacations. They're willing to enjoy the warm weather and the beaches, but they're not willing to, plow the 1.5 feet of snow off the driveway, so to speak. For those of you who also live up here in the Midwest, I'm not married, for those of you listening, but I have been in serious long-term relationships, and and like you said, it doesn't have to be a romantic one. It could be friends or family too. It's not going to be easy. It's not meant to be.
But we live in a disposable throwaway culture where when it's not easy anymore, we just move on to the next thing. And
people want the highlights. They want the highlights
right.
for Instagram. They want the highlights for social media, and they don't realize that the best kinds of relationships, I can say without a doubt that, like, the best friendships I have in my life currently, they're few compared to the amount of people I've met, but they're the ones that have been through the most crap as well, because you come out, you come out stronger on the other side. And
that's not to say if you're in some sort of like a toxic or abusive relationship, that is not what this song is about. We're not talking about weathering that kind of stuff. That's yeah, absolutely. At that point, you need to remove yourself from that relationship. But
take care of yourself.
Yeah, but hopefully that is kind of clear, and that you can apply it to the ones that you really really want to stick to, and just sort of have that recognition that there are going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be different seasons, and just be willing to adapt to that. So yeah.
Oh God, let your mercy flow!
All right, so this next song is called "Let Conviction Grow." Yeah, it's another fun one to play, but it definitely has a message in it that we feel very strongly about.
Yeah, it's we started the song off with the spoken word just to make sure that like the message came out clear right away. If you don't have to be an American to understand this, but if you live in a developed, wealthy country, it's just reality. We have more money than we have more prosperity than we have more wealth than many other people in the world. Many people live in a way that we consider to be unthinkable. And this is the way that the world is set up, is that those who have more money have more power. And a lot of times we develop exploitative relationships with those countries, and so sometimes that manifests in sex trade, human trafficking. Sometimes it's exporting jobs to those countries and then not paying them a living wage. Sometimes it's even just exporting bad ideas to those countries who look at us as the standard. Yeah, I'm not going to go way into the weeds on this one, but if you've never seen the movie American Gospel on Netflix, I would check that out. Talks about sort of the
Very solid.
Yeah, the prosperity gospel idea that we are as a country exporting to the rest of the world. And so yeah, this song is a sort of a warning shot. I'm an American, and so we're going to take responsibility there. I know there are other countries that have wealth and prosperity, and they do this stuff as well. But yeah, we're exporting dangerous things, both physically and idealistically, to other places that are less fortunate. And
we're certainly not doing the world any favors.
Yeah, unfortunately. And
unfortunately, it's the people in the most power that are the ones that are going to have the greatest influence,
absolutely,
and greatest effect on the rest of the world. Those who may not have as much financial or social pull. And so as one of the largest nations, one of the most prominent, at least in the news and around the world, countries, it's like you said, it's a warning shot. It's basically just a call out for any of us, for you and me alike, but especially for those that are in power in our country and beyond, that have, sad to say, it seems like pretty unashamedly been involved in some pretty disgusting matters.
But it's not, and I agree 100% with that, and I back that 100%. But it's not just the people that are in the most power that perpetuate these cycles, and that's why in the song,
sheep that follow.
Yeah, and all of us are part of that. All of us in some way are the sheep that follow, and that is why we're super honest in the song. We use we instead of you, or throwing this at somebody else. We have all become really desensitized. Or to think about the scene that I'm describing in the first verse in the spoken word. We've all seen those infomercials of a starving child. Maybe there's something physically wrong with them. There's some piano music playing in the back, or asking us to give or whatever. And we've become desensitized to that. It's so far away from what we see on a regular basis. And for some of us, that reality is right down the road, and we don't even realize it. Maybe we live in the suburbs. For some of us, maybe that reality hits a little closer to home. And I do recognize, and I want to make clear that I understand that this level of pain and suffering and even the human trafficking, that all does take place within our country as well. And you can drive, just down the road from where we live, and you can see poverty and pain and those kind of things. But in this particular song, we're really addressing how we as a nation, or as just the haves, have viewed and treated the have-nots and commoditized them in many ways. And in the second verse, basically we say it's a product of prosperity. Wealth in and of itself, we don't believe is evil, but unfortunately, the love of that wealth and the pursuit of that often leaves people in the tire tracks behind you. And a lot of times that's these poorer nations who are looking to us for ideas, or for aid, or for for a living wage that we're not going to provide them to work in a sweatshop or whatever it happens to be. And so really felt like
sorry, I was like, it ties really, really well into the next song, and you'll see how that is. But it's if I guess I the other thing I would say too is just, I hope this song encourages. It certainly has for me since we wrote it, but I hope it encourages people to, if nothing else, then to do some research, to try and get informed and stay informed on what's going on, like you said, even just in their own area. I understand, like, everyone's busy. Like Evan said, we both work multiple jobs on top of the band, and some people may feel like you don't have a ton of time to devote to volunteering, or maybe you don't have a lot of finances to donate to organizations working in those areas. But like even just so much as being aware.
Well, yeah, that's what the song's called.
What's going on.
Right. That's what the song's called. Let Conviction Grow. Right. So the song is an appeal for ourselves as well. Like I said, we're including ourselves in this. If we didn't feel guilty about this, we probably wouldn't write the song. But to let that conviction grow, because once you really experience that conviction and that love for your fellow man and receive, that compassion for a living, breathing human who just happened to be born in a different place than you or into a different situation than you, everything else opens up and everything else is possible. And you don't really have to question, your what can I do at that point, because the conviction it will show you. So yeah, I guess that line of the song is just a prayer. Let conviction grow inside of our hearts, so that we may know how to direct that conviction, and so that we may know what we can do to make sure that, so it's sort of the old Spider-Man line, the great power and comes great responsibility. How can we aim that power in a responsible way? All right, next up we have the song Huddled Masses.
Yeah, so this song is about the U.S.'s Remain in Mexico policy, which requires refugees seeking asylum to stay in Mexico while waiting for their asylum hearings. At the time this was written, and I believe still is, creating massive migrant camps at the border with horrible conditions. We all saw some of it in the news, and unfortunately, although some of the matters at hand currently are very much worth paying attention to and giving light to, you may not remember it because it seems
Right.
to have died off over the past few months, but it's very much still happening.
Yeah.
Evan can there's an incredible podcast about it that he can point you guys to explain a little more.
Yeah. So I kind of I heard about this issue in the news, and it's kind of had my ear on it. And then an episode of the podcast This American Life, which is a really well done podcast, an episode was created called The Outcrowd, and it ended up winning the 2020 Pulitzer Prize. It's actually the first podcast that's ever won a Pulitzer Prize for audio journalism. Is just extremely, extremely well done. Some of the interviews that they got were amazing, but it really, really takes a deep dive into the situation. And if it sounds pretty cut and dry to you, I would really encourage you to listen to the episode, because there are so many different factors. Yeah, there's things that we just don't think about. Like the U.S. has started to be really, really predictable in the way that they drop off the people who have just had their hearings, and it's the same time every day, and they take their shoelaces. And so the cartels see people walking back across the same bridge every day at the same time with no shoelaces, and then they kidnap those people and ransom them to their relatives living in the U.S. So it's just this secondary problem that we don't even think about. There's another issue where you can't be granted asylum here unless you've applied for asylum at in one of the countries that you cross through on the way. Well, that doesn't really help if, say, you're coming from a Central American country and you're fleeing gang violence or extortion or something like that, and then you cross through another country where the exact same thing is happening. That doesn't really help, and that's grounds to deny an asylum claim. So we do touch on some issues that, they hit close to immigration, but wherever you stand on the immigration debate, whatever you think about that, you can be informed by this podcast. And, this is more about refugees than it is about immigrants. So while it does definitely get political, we're not going to shy away from that. People on both sides of the immigration debate should be able to agree that when we're talking about refugees who are seeking political asylum,
should be treated fairly. And even, why do we have to say that that just as a human being, you should be treated with even just the most basic courtesies and needs.
And I think I want to highlight that and just start there. We're not going to talk about it too much more, just because this episode of This American Life did such an incredible job that explaining it. They could do a way better job than us. But whatever side of the immigration debate, or even this issue talking about refugees, whatever side you fall on, be very conscious of the way that you're speaking about the people who this is affecting. Even if you are a person who believes in stringent immigration policies and all of that stuff, think about the way that you speak about the people that this affects, because we are talking about people here. We're not talking about just because somebody's from another country, that doesn't mean that they don't share anything in common with you. So think about that and allow that to kind of illuminate any conversations that you might have about this topic. We're not just talking about a political issue. We're not just talking about something that a politician bandies about for votes. We're talking about people.
The beginning of the album says, like we say in the first song, like if love is only for the ones who share our skin, then this really is them.
Right.
And it's again, like, why we said that song was kind of a thesis statement for the album is because all these issues can be called back to that, where
Absolutely.
it's about loving and caring for every single human being, regardless of background, regardless of race, regardless of financial standing, whatever it may be, even with just the most basic needs. It's not about whether you agree with them or not. Disagree with them all you want, like, by all means have, but it's not about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This next song is called Wolf Pack. Evan has a bit of a personal story that applies to this one, kind of where it comes from. So he's going to explain a little more on that.
Yeah. So this song is, over the past few years, I've had several grandparents pass away. My grandparents were extremely important to my family, as I think most grandparents are, but really set the tone for our family and for the things that we were going to value. And so in my eyes, they're sort of the leaders in the way that you would find in a wolf pack, where you have the alpha who leads and the rest of the people the rest of the wolves who follow in those footsteps. So yeah, and I mean, it's something that's kind of hit close to home with our band. We ended up in a situation last summer when live music was still alive. Remember that. But where my grandfather passed away, and I really wanted to be in attendance at his memorial service, but I also felt very strongly that we as a band should keep our commitments. And we were scheduled, his memorial service was scheduled for a Friday morning. We were scheduled to play about 4.5 hours from home on Thursday night, and then again at a festival on that Friday. So Jesse and some of our crew really picked up the slack for me. I followed the band to the show on Thursday night, drove all the way back home that night, went to the memorial in the morning, and then drove out to the festival where our merch guy Adam had helped get a bunch of stuff ready, and our guitar tech Josh had drove all the way from Chicago through the night to set all my stuff up and have it ready to go so that I could take part in this memorial. And I think the thing that hit me the hardest being at the memorial was just seeing all of my cousins and all of these grandchildren that my grandfather
Everyone that had been touched by this person's life.
Yeah, the place was packed, man. The Wonder Years has a song called I Just Want to Sell Out My Funeral. And I think we think all the time as a band, oh, how many people are going to be at this show? How many people are going to be at that show?
Don't bring that one up. I don't want to cry on camera.
Well, it's valid, right? We think all the time about these sort of markers that we have in our lives about how am I going to do at work? What is my salary going to be? How many people are going to be at this show? But the real indicator of sort of the life that you lived is, not the only
It's
one,
a
but
morbid thought, but like
yeah,
I
just
mean, like not in a sense of like, I mean, I pray to God that this doesn't happen for any of you all listening anytime soon. But like one day, hopefully far down the road, when the time comes that you pass on and a memorial service is held, the indicator of, you know, your family members, the friends that come to show their respects, and the stories that are told are going to be what's remembered about your life.
yeah, and not necessarily just that moment. Obviously, that's sort of it's a great song title, but
Yeah.
but we're really talking about and looking at this song, the legacy that you leave. And that's something I think that even if you're not a person who is close with your family, or if you're not somebody who's experienced, I think most of us experience loss, but if that doesn't hit super close to home for you, then you know you can maybe look at this song as a way to think about the kind of legacy that you plan to leave.
I
And
was just gonna say, like, maybe it's something to motivate you for, like, you know, hey, this is this is how I want to be remembered by my kids, and I want to be the one to start that chain in my family. You know, like I've seen and heard you talk about how your grandparents have, you know, changed the lives of so many people in your family, and now seeing that, you know, and knowing you and different members of your family and how you all live your lives, and like this could be the chance for, you know, someone, you know, you could make this decision now, speaking to anyone listening as well as ourselves, like make that decision to from here on out live a life that will start that your kids will say, you know what, I want to tell my kids about this person. I want to instill those same virtues and the values in my kids, and then so on, great grandkids, you know, it just goes on, beyond anything you'll ever be able to see. All right, so this next song and the last song on the album is called "The King Is Alive." It was not released as a single, although we did release a little bit of a teaser video, with like a 45-second or so clip of the song, the end of the song at least, around Easter, that people caught on to.
yeah,
Pretty quickly. So I mean, you've heard some of it for a little longer than the rest of it, but this is here to kind of guide you through the other parts of the song that you haven't had as much of a chance to dwell on yet.
yeah. I love allegory. I write like a lot of really literal lyrics that are, you know, easy uh, to to understand, and that's intentional. And so I love getting to do sort of a change of pace song. So this song is sort of an allegory for a spiritual journey. So if you don't know, both Jesse and I profess to be Christians, and so this is an allegory for our faith journey. And it's kind of the nerdy side of it is that it's sort of set in this post-apocalyptic world where the sky is sort of perpetually blocked by cloud cover, for so many generations that the idea of a literal physical sun is just seen as silly and utopian to everybody except, you know, I think it's like the old ladies and the little girls, and the people who are, you know, the poor people sitting around the hearth at night, and sort of telling these stories of you know, the sun that may or may not exist, and it's sort of seen as silly. And I think that's an allegory for, you know, what happens in our lives. We don't.
Was gonna say, life can kind of feel like that
Yeah,
sometimes. It can
absolutely.
kind of feel like you've been under this cloud for so long, and like, you know, you can't even remember the last time you saw the figurative sun. You know, even on a good weather day, you
Yeah,
know, you could go about, it could be sunny and blue skies outside, and you just feel this sense of dread or this weight on yourself, and it doesn't feel like it's lifted.
yeah.
Um,
But
but
there's a line near the end of this song, that I think sums up the whole thing, that's lifted directly from scripture, that it says the darkness is not dark to you. And even when we're going through things that seem like the end of the world, and hope seems just completely out of the question, that God stays the same. And so this song is just sort of a reminder that um, we can always come back to that, and that even when things feel dark, when things feel bleak, that we have uh, this set of everlasting arms wrapped around us, that cares about us, that loves us, and we can take comfort in that. And so I thought that a really good way to represent that would be to, to talk about this guy who, he starts off in a place where he's completely hopeless. He's very skeptical. He doesn't believe that there is much to life other than working his fingers to the bone, and getting by on his own merit and his own moxie. And I think that that's a message that we get really, really strong today is, you have to look out for yourself because nobody else is going to look out for you. And that can breed a sort of sense of cynicism for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that that pretty much sums it up. And I know for some people maybe the otherworldly thing is a bit hard to grasp, but like the really just understanding that I mean it's a song of hope too, and I think that's kind of what we wanted to end it on. As much as this whole album throughout it talks about things that we struggle with, or comes from a place of learning, um, a place of unrest, or a place of conviction. We wanted to kind of end the album on kind of this feeling, if not for the right up until that last verse, and that last chorus, to leave you feeling hopeful.
Absolutely. And I mean, look at the choruses that are interspersed in between these verses of this
Yeah,
hard-heartedness that's being demonstrated by this person. But we're just, there's a fire in my bones. Like I felt it flicker. I can't let it go. I know that there's something there. I know that there's something more. And if you don't believe that, if that's not your personal conviction, then I would just encourage you that, start from a place of understanding that there is something outside of yourself. And if you can start from that place, understanding that it's not just about how hard you work and what you do for yourself, and that if you don't look out for yourself, nobody else is going to look out for you. Because when you take that approach to life, and I'm not saying not to work hard, I'm not saying that there's no merit in that, but when you take that approach to life, you develop this bitterness and this callousness, and this distrust of the people around you, and that's going to take you further and further away from.
not even just working hard, but just like ending on that, like when your dependence is I guess, I mean, that again, like you said, you don't want to, we're not encouraging anyone to be lazy or to like just kind of sit around and expect things to fall into your lap all the time. But like when that is your only hope, when you are convinced that that's the only way to live 100% of the time, um you're probably not, you're probably going to be pretty stressed, and you're probably not going to be too happy in the end. And I think I just thought of the line in the song where it just says my heart is anchored in hope, and I think that pretty much sums it up for me. Is where whatever's clouding me over at a given time, it could be stress at work, could be family issues, it could be finances, whatever it may be, relationships. Um, it could just be an anxiety attack, like whatever I'm feeling through a given day or week or month, even. Um, I know that my base is built on hope. I know for like Evan said, we both find our faith in Christianity, and we both believe in Jesus. And so for me, that's where my grounding comes from, and I am able to dive back into that and know that, I have surrounded myself with people in my inner circle that will also build me up, that God has brought into my life, for that purpose. And I know that both from Him and from those people around me, I have my anchor in solid ground, and it's gonna drag me through whatever I can't get through on my own. It's gonna pull me out of those clouds, and we'll see the sun again, and um, they always do. Um, and it might not come when you want it to. It might not come as quickly as you want it to, but it will come. And um, that line alone is a reminder.
Yeah, I think that's something that we see from this character in this song, is that he doesn't give up. He doesn't give up on that hope. He has an open heart. He's open to, he's it says publicly, on the surface, he sort of believes these people are sort of ridiculous, but deep in his heart, he holds tight to this hope, and he keeps going out every morning to the eastern gate and looking out into the black, and waiting for the sunrise, and it never comes, and it never comes, and he keeps going, and he keeps going, and he keeps going. In that action, that faith and that hope that he has ends up being the thing that melts that callus from around his heart. And so that's why I said, for me, if you're somebody who you don't believe any of this, you think it just all sounds completely ridiculous, my challenge to you would be, can you start from a place of removing that bitterness, and removing this ideal that everything that you do is only affected by you, and that you are the only one affected by it, and that you're not going to trust anybody, and that you're just going to kind of make your own way with your moxie, as it says in the song. Can you start from a place of at least opening yourself up to the idea that there's more going on here than just you. There's all of us that are walking this journey together on this earth, and I think if you can start from that place, then you might feel some of those layers start to peel away, and maybe you'll come to the realization that Jesse and I have come to, that God is in control, and that we don't have to. That we don't have to go through the darkness alone, and we know that there's a sunrise on the other side. Not to be too cliche about it, but I guess to kind of hit what we talked about in the song. So
I can't tell you how many times I look back after a period of feeling like I'm in a valley, feeling like I'm in the shadows, and feeling like it's going nowhere. And a couple years down the line, sometimes it's a couple of weeks, sometimes it's a couple months, sometimes it's been a couple years, I look back and I think, wow, I never thought that was going to end. I never thought I was going to pull through that, but I did. And it was either because of my faith, my friends, or my family, those around me. And whatever, maybe we don't share the same faith and you're listening to this, and that's okay. But like, just grounding yourself in people that are going to walk alongside you through those tough times, and regardless of what faith or what belief you might claim as your own, we're certainly, like I said, always here to talk, always here to chat. It doesn't have to be about that, but if you need someone to send a message to, or would like some resources to be that anchor of hope for you in your life, we'd love to pass them on. So
yeah, we're not going to shove anything down your throat. This is something that we feel convicted about, and so we have to share it. But we're not going to make you feel less than for not sharing that conviction with us. And so if please don't let that be the reason that you wouldn't want to reach out to us, or start a conversation with us. We both have many friends who don't believe the same things that we do, and we understand that, and so don't let that hold you back if you're thinking that you might want to reach out to us, but you're worried about how we might perceive that.
Yeah, and don't let that hold you back from reaching out to other people to, there's like you said, if we can't come together and discuss things from different perspectives and learn from each other, we'll get nowhere. And we can still encourage each other and love on each other endlessly as human beings, even if we see certain things, not so eye to eye, or just, in a different way. So yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and letting us wax poetic on all of these songs and dive a little deeper into them. And yeah, we really appreciate the response that we've seen to the album so far.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that we had been asked to do something like this, or
Yeah.
we're blessed enough to
anyone
even feel
cares.
like there's enough there's enough interest, or that anyone cares enough to hear us just ramble on. We have a lot of practice. We spend a lot of hours in a van, so we're not used to being short and sweet about things. But thank you for listening to us share our hearts, share what these songs mean to us, where they come from. And again, like I'm sure Evan will agree with, and like we said multiple times through episode, we hope you're able to feel convicted, to be able to learn more about maybe some situations you're not as familiar with, to educate yourself and those around you, and to leave feeling a sense of hope, a sense of motivation, to inspire both your life and those in your lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wrote this album for you guys. It wasn't and not to knock bands that write more introspective stuff. That's awesome, and we need that, and I listen to a lot of those kind of bands, but
and we've done that.
yeah, we absolutely have. There's even some stuff
Yeah.
kind of like that on this album, but for the most part, we wrote this album to share our hearts and to encourage others. And so if that's you, then we just really appreciate you taking the time and giving it a chance. And if you really, really like it, I think the best thing that you can possibly do is share it with a friend.
Buy us some tacos.
Yeah. The best thing you can do is buy us some tacos. But since you can't do that because of social distancing, and since we can't play shows, the best thing that you can do is to share it with a friend. Just share it with somebody that you think might enjoy it. And if you can do that, we would sincerely appreciate it, because we can't be out there on the road right now spreading it ourselves. And so we would really appreciate the help getting the word out.
Yeah. Yep. Just thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I can really say about it. Thank you for being interested. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for supporting us. We are incredibly thankful. So when we can't wait to be able to share these stories with you in person one day, hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. And if you're liking the podcast so far, please, if you could take just a minute to give us a positive comment or a review, that really, really helps with spreading the word. And if you did
tag and suggest guests too,
yes.
we will literally reach out to anyone that, and I mean, obviously don't be like, yo, you guys should talk to Chris Pratt. Like, obviously we're not going to be able to reach Chris Pratt, but like I just watched Jurassic World, so that was the first person that came to mind. But like, if there's someone you think would be reachable, that we could get on the show and talk to, have a conversation with, that might be interesting to you, please suggest them, comment, like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that'll allow us to keep making these things for you guys. Or if you just really are sick of hearing us talk, don't.
Yeah, that's an option too. All right, guys. Well, thank you so very much, and we'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to the American Arson Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a positive comment or review. Connect with us online through Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Twitter. And check out AmericanArson.com for music, merch, and upcoming tour dates. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay inspired, stay positive, and keep creating.